In a city where wealth and power write the rules, a hardworking black girl who's a waitress and Korea's most untouchable, cold and ruthless CEO cross paths by chance. But what begins with coffee and stolen glances soon spirals into secrets, betrayals, and a war between love and reputation. Can Brenda survive a world determined to break her? Or will Miho risk everything, family, fortune, and legacy, for the woman no one believes belongs? Watch till the end to see how this story goes. Never forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the exciting daily stories coming your way this week. The text sat on Brenda's phone like a live wire. Unknown, you think you belong. Watch the news tomorrow. She read it 3 times, the words burning brighter with each pass. Her first instinct was denial, probably a wrong number, some troll, but her gut knew better. This was deliberate. This was a threat. The cafe around her hummed with its usual late-evening rhythm. Soft jazz, the hiss of steamed milk, the polite chatter of guests. But everything felt sharper, the lights too bright, the air too thin. She slipped her phone into her apron pocket and forced herself to finish cleaning. Every movement felt mechanical. Wipe the counter. Stack the cups. Smile at the departing guests. Pretend your stomach isn't tying itself in knots. When the last customer left and the staff began their closing routines, Hannah sauntered past with a smirk. "Rough day, manager," she said, drawing out the title like a mockery. Brenda didn't answer. Silence was safer. But Hannah leaned closer, her voice a purr meant for Brenda's ears alone. "Maybe tomorrow will be worse. Some people don't last long when the spotlight gets ugly." Brenda's heart slammed. Before she could respond, Hannah turned on her heel and strolled away, humming a tune like a victory song. Back in her tiny apartment, Brenda locked the door and collapsed onto the bed without removing her shoes. The room smelled faintly of detergent and roasted beans clinging to her hair. She pulled out her phone. No new messages, but the threat glowed in her memory like a neon sign. Watch the news tomorrow. Her mind ran wild with possibilities. A leaked photo of a slap. A tabloid headline twisting the story into scandal. Lies about her past, her family, her visa. She thought of her brother, Chidi, still in Nigeria, counting on her salary to keep his university fees paid. What if the smear reached him? What if he believed the lies? Her chest tightened until she couldn't breathe. The door buzzer startled her so violently she nearly dropped the phone. "Brenda," a familiar voice called from the hallway. "It's Miho." She hesitated, then opened the door. Miho stood there in a black coat, rain dripping from the collar, eyes scanning her face with immediate concern. "You didn't answer my calls," he said. "My phone was on silent," she lied, stepping aside. "Come in." He entered, bringing the cool scent of rain with him. The small room seemed to shrink around his presence. "What happened?" he asked quietly. Brenda handed him the phone without a word. He read the text once, his expression darkening with each second. When he finally looked up, his eyes were cold steel. "This is harassment," he said. "It's my mother's people, or someone she's stirring. I'll have it traced." "No," Brenda said quickly. "Please don't make it worse." "Worse?" His voice sharpened. "Someone is threatening you." "They're threatening me, Miho. Not the company. Not you. Me. And if you fight back, it'll just feed the story." He clenched his jaw. "There is a story." She shook her head, but doubt crept in. "What if tomorrow the whole city thinks her voice cracked. "What if they print lies about me? About where I'm from?" Miho stepped closer, lowering his voice. "They can print whatever they want. I know the truth. My team will scrub anything before it gains traction." "It's not just about you," she whispered. "My brother, he's back home. He'll see it. He'll think Look at me," Miho said gently. She did. His gaze was steady, fierce. "You are not their story," he said. "You are not their gossip. You are a woman who works harder than anyone I've ever met, and no headline can change that." Her throat tightened. The warmth in his eyes was terrifying because it made her want to believe him. "Miho," she said softly, "your mother won't stop. She slapped me in front of everyone. What comes next?" He reached out, hesitated, then brushed his thumb lightly across the fading bruise on her cheek. The touch was feather light but carried a promise. "Next," he said, I protect what matters. Brenda's heart stuttered. And if the board sides with her, then I fight them, he said simply. The room went quiet except for the rain tapping against the window. For a long moment neither of them moved. Finally Brenda pulled back, hugging her arms around herself. You can't fight everyone for me. His voice softened. Maybe not, but I can stand with you while you fight. The next morning, Brenda woke before dawn to the buzzing of her phone. Her stomach clenched as she unlocked the screen. It wasn't a news alert. It was worse. A gossip site had posted a blurry photo from the cafe. Brenda standing inches from Miho, his hand near her cheek, her eyes closed as if leaning into the touch. The caption screamed, Hanseong airs secret affair with foreign employee, inside the scandal that could topple a dynasty. Comments were already piling up. She's after his money. Typical foreign gold digger. Fire her before she ruins the brand. Brenda's hands shook so hard, she nearly dropped the phone. Her fight had officially begun. By the time Brenda reached the cafe, the morning air was already thick with camera flashes. Reporters crowded the entrance like a wall of umbrellas, their lenses snapping every movement. Boom mics jutted forward like spears. There she is, someone shouted. Brenda, are you the CEO's mistress? Did you seduce him for a visa? The questions hit like flying stones. Brenda froze at the edge of the sidewalk. Customers craned their necks from inside, some holding their phones high to film the spectacle. Her pulse roared in her ears. Every breath tasted of fear and bitter coffee. A young reporter in a yellow raincoat darted closer, microphone thrust toward her face. Brenda, do you deny having an affair with Hanseong's heir? Brenda flinched back. Excuse me, The rest of her words drowned beneath the surge of voices. Gold digger, a stranger jeered. Go back to your country, someone else shouted. The crowd howled like it had been waiting for blood. Inside, Hannah stood at the counter, arms folded, a shark's smile spreading across her face. Showtime, she murmured loud enough for the staff to hear. Brenda pushed through the doors, the reporters swarming, so close she had to shove one away with her shoulder. The cafe, once her safe corner of Seoul, now felt like a stage set for her humiliation. Customers whispered openly, That's her. No wonder he keeps showing up. Look at her acting innocent. The hotel manager, Mrs. Park, appeared from the back office, cheeks flushed and eyes wide. Brenda, what is going on? She demanded. Why are there cameras outside? Brenda swallowed hard. I don't. Mrs. Park's phone rang, a sharp electronic chirp that sliced through the tension. She snatched it up, listened for a few seconds, then turned pale. That was headquarters, she said, voice shaking. They want you suspended. Effective immediately. The words landed like a slap. Suspended, Brenda whispered. For what? Mrs. Park's eyes darted nervously toward the windows. For public image issues. I'm sorry. They say until this situation is clarified. You mean until I disappear, Brenda said, the taste of iron rising in her mouth. Mrs. Park's gaze softened. Brenda, I don't agree with it. But there's pressure from above. If I don't follow orders, I could lose my own job. Brenda's chest tightened until breathing felt impossible. Do I at least get to explain? The cafe door swung open with a violent crash. A woman stepped in, flanked by two suited aides. Immaculate white coat, diamond earrings, eyes sharp enough to slice glass. Mrs. Lee, Miho's mother. The chatter fell to a hush, the silence somehow worse than the shouting outside. Brenda's stomach dropped. This was no random visit. This was a hunt. Mrs. Lee surveyed the room with cool precision before her gaze landed on Brenda. So this is the little waitress who thinks she can climb into the Hanseong family, she said, her voice smooth but dripping venom. Her Korean carried the crisp diction of the old elite, every syllable a tiny dagger. Brenda forced herself to stand straighter. Mrs. Lee, The older woman closed the distance in 2 swift steps and, before anyone could react, struck her across the face. The crack of the slap echoed through the cafe. Gasps rippled across the room. A phone dropped. Someone screamed. Brenda staggered back, her cheek blazing with heat. Her vision blurred, but she kept her footing. Mrs. Lee lowered her hand with icy poise. You, she said, voice cutting like a blade. are a stain. Do you think Seoul will welcome a foreign parasite clinging to my son? Do you think Korea will tolerate you? Every word landed like a lash. Your kind comes here to take our money, our men, our name. But you will not take my son. Brenda's heart pounded so hard it hurt. Her mouth tasted of blood from where she'd bitten her cheek. She wanted to shout, to fight back, but her voice refused to rise. Mrs. Lee turned to the stunned staff and customers. Remember this, she said coldly. This woman is nothing. Treat her accordingly. With a flick of her wrist, she signaled her aides. They opened the door and parted the reporters like a tide as she swept out, leaving a trail of silence in her wake. The cafe seemed to exhale all at once, whispers surging like a tide. Brenda touched her cheek, the sting pulsing beneath her fingertips. She tasted humiliation like smoke in her throat. Hannah's satisfied smirk was the last thing she saw before she pushed through the back door into the cold alley. The roar of cameras followed her, but Brenda kept walking, one shaky step at a time, until the noise faded into the drizzle. Her mind replayed the slap, the insults, the cameras flashing as if to brand her shame into eternity. But beneath the humiliation, something else began to burn, slow and dangerous. Not fear, not despair, anger. For the first time since this nightmare began, Brenda felt it surge like fire in her chest. This wasn't over. The boardroom fell silent when Miho burst through the doors. He never barged. Miho Lee was known for precision, measured steps, quiet authority, the kind of leader who could disarm a crisis with a single raised brow. But not today. Today he was a storm in a perfectly tailored suit. His assistant, Ji-eun, scrambled to keep up, clutching a tablet like a shield. Sir, the press. Cancel the press conference, Miho snapped. His voice was sharp enough to cut glass. Find my mother. Now. The executives, seated around the long oak table, exchanged nervous glances. None of them had ever heard Lee Miho raise his voice. One of the directors cleared his throat. Sir, perhaps we should first discuss the... Discuss. Miho's eyes flared. While my mother assaults an employee and tabloids drag her name through the mud. You want a discussion. The man shrank back, mumbling something about public relations. Miho turned on his heel and strode out, the door slamming hard enough to rattle the glass walls. He found Mrs. Lee in her private sitting room at the family estate. The room smelled of lilies and old money, the silk curtains glowing with late morning light. She didn't rise when he entered. Instead, she sipped her tea with the unbothered grace of a queen. So, she said coolly, setting the cup down, you've come to scold your mother. Scold. Miho's jaw tightened. You slapped her. In public. With cameras rolling. She deserved it, Mrs. Lee replied, voice smooth as porcelain. A waitress who thinks she can snare a Lee? Someone had to remind her of her place. Miho's breath caught between fury and disbelief. Her place, he repeated, each word colder than the last. As a human being, one you humiliated in front of the entire city. Mrs. Lee's expression didn't flicker. Better humiliation now than a lifetime of shame. Do you think the board will accept that as your wife? That! His voice sharpened to a blade. Her name is Brenda. Mrs. Lee waved a manicured hand. Names don't change blood. She will ruin you, Miho. She will ruin everything we built. Miho stepped closer, eyes blazing. The only one ruining this family is you. The words hung in the air like a slap. For a heartbeat, Mrs. Lee actually looked startled. Then her eyes hardened into glittering ice. You dare speak to me like that, she hissed. I dare, Miho said, low and deadly, because you crossed a line. You don't lay a finger on her again. You don't send another message, another reporter, another whisper. Or so help me. Mother, I will cut every tie you think makes you untouchable. Mrs. Lee rose slowly, the movement regal despite the fury sharpening her features. Would you throw away your birthright for a girl who serves coffee? I would burn this company to ash before I let you destroy her. The silence that followed was electric. Finally, Mrs. Lee tilted her head, a cold smile curving her lips. We'll see how long you feel that way when the board votes to remove you. If they try, Miho said, voice steady despite the storm inside him, I'll take Hanseong private. I'd rather own ashes than bow to bigots. He turned, coat snapping behind him, and strode out before she could reply. Outside the estate, Miho's phone buzzed. He snatched it up. "Sir," Ji-eun said urgently, "Brenda has disappeared from her apartment. Reporters say she left through the back alley and hasn't been seen since." His blood ran cold. "Get me her brother's number," he ordered, "and pull the GPS on her employee ID. I want every resource on this. Now." "Understood." Miho gripped the steering wheel, so tightly his knuckles blanched. Images of Brenda flashed in his mind, her wide eyes in the cafe, the reddening mark on her cheek, the way she trembled but refused to bow. "Stay safe," he begged silently. "Please stay safe." He slammed the accelerator, the engine roaring as the city blurred around him. This wasn't about a company anymore. This was war. Rain slicked the Seoul streets into a blur of neon and asphalt. Miho gripped the steering wheel with white knuckles, the wipers swiping in frantic rhythm. "Any update?" he barked into the hands-free receiver. "Still tracking her employee badge," Ji-eun replied through the car speakers. "It last pinged near Mapo Station 15 minutes ago, but the signal's weak. She may have dropped it, or someone could have taken it." Miho cursed under his breath. "What about her phone?" "Turned off." The two words punched the air out of his chest. Brenda never turned off her phone. Not once since he'd known her. "Contact the security division," he ordered. "I want CCTV access, city feeds, subway cameras, anything. And call Detective Park. Tell him this is personal." "Already on it," Ji-eun said, her voice tight. "But, sir, the press is everywhere. If they see you searching, it'll feed the scandal." "Let them," Miho snapped. "I'm not hiding while she's out there alone." He took a sharp corner onto Mapo Street, tires hissing on wet pavement. The district buzzed with its usual late-night chaos. Ramen stands steaming, students laughing under umbrellas, but every face felt like a possible threat. He parked illegally and strode into the subway entrance, scanning the crowd. Rainwater dripped from his coat as he pushed through the turnstiles. A vendor recognized him, eyes widening. "CEO Lee." Miho ignored the stares. "Did you see a woman? African, mid-20s, black jacket, coffee shop apron, come through here in the last hour?" The man frowned. "Maybe she looked scared. Went toward line 6, but she was moving fast." Miho bolted down the stairs 2 at a time. The station smelled of damp concrete and fried food. His shoes splashed through shallow puddles as he scanned every platform, every shadow. "Where are you, Brenda?" The train thundered in from the next tunnel, a gust of air whipping his coat. Passengers surged forward. None of them were her. His phone buzzed again. "Sir," Ji-eun said, "we have partial footage from an alley near the cafe. She left alone. Hood up. Head down." A black sedan followed her for 2 blocks, but the plates were obscured. Miho's stomach dropped. "Send me the footage." "It's already in your inbox." "I've alerted the police." Miho pulled the video onto his phone mid-stride. The grainy clip showed Brenda walking quickly through the rain, shoulders hunched, every line of her body screaming flight. Behind her, a dark sedan crawled like a predator. His chest tightened to the point of pain. "Track that car," he said hoarsely. "Get every traffic cam in the district. Now." Back in the car, the city lights smeared across his windshield as he sped toward the next camera location. The rain fell harder, drumming the roof like an angry heart. He replayed the alley video again and again, each loop feeding the fire in his veins. He could almost hear her voice from that night in her apartment. "You can't fight everyone for me. Watch me," he thought. Another call came through, this one from Detective Park. "We've located the sedan," the detective said. "Registered to a shell company tied to a private investigator, one of your mother's contractors." Miho's blood boiled. "Where is it now?" "Heading toward the Hanseong private villas in Seocho. We're moving units to intercept, but..." Miho didn't wait for the rest. He slammed the accelerator, the engine snarling as the car shot forward. Traffic blurred around him. Red lights became suggestions. All he could see was Brenda, her damp curls clinging to her forehead, her eyes wide with hurt, the bruise still faint on her cheek. "Hold on," he begged silently. "I'm coming." The GPS pinged with a new update. An alley near the riverfront, the sedan's last known stop. Miho tightened his grip on the wheel and drove into the storm. Brenda's wrists burned where the zip ties cut into her skin. The sedan's interior smelled of damp leather and cigarette smoke. Rain streaked the tinted windows, distorting the city lights into wavering ghosts. The man in the front passenger seat didn't bother to turn around. Broad shoulders, black ball cap pulled low. The driver said nothing either, just the soft growl of the engine and the wet hiss of tires over asphalt. Brenda swallowed hard, fighting the rising panic. "Where are you taking me?" Her voice trembled despite her effort to steady it. Silence. She tried again, louder. "I asked." "Quiet." The passenger barked without looking back. The single word cracked like a whip. Brenda flinched but forced herself to meet the darkened glass of the window, scanning for landmarks. A bridge. Neon signs in Hangul. They were leaving the main streets, heading toward the river. Her mind raced. Miho, does he know? She twisted her wrists, testing the zip ties. The plastic bit deeper, but one edge scraped against the metal buckle of her belt. If she could just... The car jolted sharply, throwing her against the door. The driver cursed and slowed. Through the rain-smeared windshield, red lights flared in the rearview mirror. A car was gaining, fast. The passenger turned, his face half hidden in shadow. What the hell? It was following. The driver glanced back, eyes narrowing. Black Genesis sedan. Closing in. Brenda's heart kicked. Miho. The passenger pulled a phone from his pocket, muttering in Korean too fast for her to catch. "Lose him," he ordered. The driver stomped the accelerator. The sedan lurched forward, tires spitting water. Brenda seized the moment. She dug the edge of her belt buckle into the plastic binding her wrists, sawing furiously. The zip tie began to give. Behind them, headlights swelled like a charging beast. Miho's car surged through the rain, engine screaming. He leaned forward over the wheel, jaw clenched. He could see her now, Brenda's silhouette in the back seat. The sight made his vision blur with rage. He hit the horn, a long, furious blast. The sedan swerved, trying to shake him. Miho matched every move, closing the gap. Inside, Brenda finally felt the zip tie snap. Her wrists were free. The passenger noticed the movement too late. Brenda lunged forward, slamming her shoulder into his seat. He whipped around, grabbing for her arm. She bit down hard on his hand. He yelled in pain, yanking back. The driver cursed and jerked the wheel. The car fishtailed across the slick road. Miho seized the opening, cutting hard to the left. His sedan skidded alongside theirs, metal shrieking as the two cars scraped door to door. Through the rain-streaked glass, Brenda caught a flash of Miho's face, eyes blazing, teeth clenched. Her chest flooded with wild relief. Miho lowered his window and shouted over the roar of engines. "Brenda! Duck!" Instinct took over. She threw herself sideways, just as Miho rammed his car into theirs. The impact jolted through her bones. The kidnapper in the passenger seat slammed against the dash with a grunt. The sedan spun out, tires screeching, and skidded sideways across the wet asphalt until it slammed against a guardrail. Brenda's door flew open, Miho. Rain drenched his hair and suit, but he didn't hesitate. He yanked her out, pulling her against his chest. "Are you hurt?" His voice was a mix of fury and fear. I'm okay," she stammered, clinging to his coat. The kidnappers scrambled from the crippled car, but sirens wailed in the distance. Detective Park's units closing fast. Miho stepped in front of Brenda, eyes cold as steel. "Touch her again," he warned, "and you'll wish the police got to you first." The men froze, weighing their chances against Miho's towering rage and the growing chorus of sirens. They chose to run. Miho tightened his arms around Brenda as flashing red and blue lights flooded the rain-slicked street. "You're safe now," he said softly, voice breaking despite himself. "I've got you." For the first time all night, Brenda let herself believe it. The flashing patrol lights faded into the distance, leaving only the low hum of rain against the river. Detective Park had taken the statements, the kidnappers were in custody, and the wrecked sedan was hauled away. But Brenda's hands still trembled as if the danger hadn't left her body. Miho draped his coat over her shoulders. It smelled of rain and the faint, grounding scent of cedar. "Are you warm enough?" he asked, voice low and tight. She nodded, though her teeth still chattered. They stood beneath the skeletal outline of a pedestrian bridge, the Han River a dark ribbon behind them. Police tape fluttered in the wet wind. The world felt strangely quiet after all the sirens and shouts, as if the city itself were holding its breath. Miho finally turned to face her. "Brenda," his voice faltered. "I'm so sorry. This is my fault." Her brow furrowed. "No. Those men. Your mother, this isn't." "It is," he cut in, anguish sharpening his words. "If I'd been clearer with my family, if I'd protected you from the start." "You did protect me," she said, her own voice trembling. "You came for me." Miho's jaw tightened. Rain streaked his face like silver scars. "I thought I was going to lose you before I ever had the chance to tell you," he trailed off, struggling for words. "Brenda, She stepped closer, the coat slipping from her shoulders. "Don't," she whispered. "Not because you feel guilty." His eyes searched hers, desperate and uncertain. "You think this is guilt? I think everything is chaotic right now, and I don't want to be someone you protect out of duty." Something flickered in his expression. Pain, frustration, longing. He took a shaky breath. "This I assent duty," he said quietly. "When I saw that car take you, I've never been that scared in my life. All I could think was, if I lose her, nothing else matters. Not the company, not the board, not even my mother." Brenda's chest tightened. The world around them blurred until it was just the rain, his eyes, and the frantic beat of her own heart. "You don't even know if I'm worth all that," she whispered. Miho gave a small, bitter laugh. "I knew the moment I saw you cleaning tables at that cafe. You were the only real thing in a room full of noise. I can't explain it better than that." The admission cracked something open inside her. All the fear, the humiliation, the slap, the kidnapping, it all spilled into a single hot tear that slid down her cheek. Miho reached up and caught it with his thumb, his touch achingly gentle. "I'm here," he said. "As long as you'll have me." For a heartbeat, Brenda simply breathed, her gaze locked with his. Then, without fully deciding, she leaned forward. Their foreheads touched first, a soft collision that felt like a question. Miho exhaled shakily, his hand sliding to the back of her neck. When their lips finally met, the kiss was slow and searching, rain cooling their skin but not the fire underneath. It wasn't the desperate crash of two people escaping danger. It was a promise. When they parted, Brenda let out a small, breathless laugh that surprised even her. "You're crazy," she whispered. "Only for you," he said, voice rough but certain. They stayed there beneath the bridge, wrapped in his coat and the quiet hiss of rain, neither caring about the world waiting to explode again tomorrow. For the first time since the nightmare began, Brenda felt something stronger than fear. She felt safe. Miho had done the unthinkable. He'd gathered evidence against his own mother and sent her to prison. The world could call him heartless, but he didn't care. Truth was truth, and he'd rather live hated than live a lie. When the board tried to vote him out of the company, he didn't flinch. He faced them squarely, voice steady as he laid out every document, every transfer, every bribe his mother had used to control them. One by one, faces dropped. Shame replaced arrogance. By the time he finished, no one dared continue the vote. Later that evening, he sat on a quiet park bench, city lights glowing faintly through the fog. Brenda leaned against his shoulder, the night breeze, teasing strands of her hair across his face. "Please, Miho," she whispered, her voice soft but firm. "Release your mother. She's still your mom." He stared ahead, jaw tight, eyes dark. "No." Brenda sighed and lifted her head from his shoulder, turning to face him. "I mean it. She only did what she thought was best for you. Any mother would." "Brenda, dear," Miho interrupted, his tone low but cutting through her words. His hand clenched around the bench's edge, knuckles white. The wind carried a heavy silence between them, one filled with everything neither of them dared to say. "You know being kind doesn't get you anywhere, right?" Miho said quietly, his voice sharp but tired, like a man who'd fought too long to trust again. Brenda didn't answer. She just looked at him, really looked at him, until his words lost their edge. The night breeze rustled through the trees, carrying a faint chill that matched the silence between them. He frowned. "Brenda!" No response. Then he followed her gaze and froze. His mother stood a few steps away, her figure trembling under the streetlight. Mrs. Lee's eyes glistened with regret, her hands twisting together as if she were holding on to courage she didn't have. What's the meaning of this? Miho's voice hardened, but beneath it, something wavered. Miho, stop, Brenda said, stepping forward, her voice gentle but firm. Please, for my sake, forgive your mother. I've already forgiven her. She was arrested because of me, and I let that go. You should too. Babe! Please, she whispered again, and that one word broke through his defenses. Mrs. Lee's knees buckled as she started to kneel, tears streaking down her cheeks, but Brenda caught her in time. Don't, she murmured, helping her up. You don't need to kneel. Just hold him. Miho looked away, fighting the tightness in his throat. Then, slowly, he turned back. His mother's eyes met his, fragile, pleading, and all the anger he'd carried finally began to crumble. He exhaled shakily. Fine, he said at last. I forgive you. But don't ever do that again. Mrs. Lee nodded, sobbing softly as she reached for his hand. Brenda smiled faintly, her eyes glistening as the streetlights painted gold halos around them. For a moment, none of them spoke. The city noise faded, replaced by the quiet rhythm of hearts learning to heal. Miho wrapped an arm around Brenda and looked up at the dark sky. You're too kind for this world, he murmured. She smiled against his shoulder. Maybe that's why you need me in it. He let out a soft laugh, the first real one in a long time, as the camera of life slowly pulled back, leaving them standing together beneath the falling night. Peace, fragile but true, finally found them. Sometimes forgiveness doesn't change the past, but it changes what's left of our hearts. And that's enough to begin again.
And now we've come to the end of this wonderful story. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. More exciting stories are coming this week, so don't forget to subscribe, like, and share to stay tuned for more Moon Bunny adventures.